Alright guys, we are back. Hopefully today will be the day we can finally finish up the fence. So I started doing some of the gates off camera. Never made a gate before, so I figured it was gonna be a little bit difficult, so I wanted to try a couple of them out. But we already got this gate all figured out and taken care of. Last two we have to do is the 18-foot gate right here, and then the 12-foot gate down on that side. We already took care of the two gates on this side as well. We have another 4-foot gate on the right here, and then we have two about 11, almost 12-foot gates. This one was a lot wider than we thought it was going to be, but we got that all taken care of. I did end up ordering those chain or those like cable tensioning kits for this gate because the wheels the wheels are doing a good job holding up some of the weight. The only problem is because the wheels on the back side of it, the whole gate kind of leans forward a little bit, so it looks a little bit crooked, and these are pushed out a little bit further than they need to be. But so I'm gonna end up putting the tensioning kits on it to help try to take off some of the weight off the wheels. Maybe we might even be able to get rid of the wheels completely, but we'll see what happens when that comes in. Should be in today, so I might be able to mess around with that a little bit. The other thing too is we have that full automatic gate opening system. I just hung the two boxes up for it already, but there'll be two pistons essentially hooked up, one to each gate. That'll take care of opening all this. It'll have an electronic locking mechanism in the middle, and then we'll have to bury the wires and take care of all that stuff. I don't know if we're going to get to that in this video, but I would like to. It's kind of a pain now. We have the gate set up, but every time you want to leave the driveway, we have to come out and push the gate open by hand. Not that big of a deal, but we want to get the gate opener set up. So I think we're going to jump over onto the other side. We'll start setting some of that stuff up. Those other gates are going to basically follow the same pattern that this one does. So we're just going to make the square layout of the gate. We'll half lap all the corners, and then we're probably only going to put one cross support on the other one instead of two. These ones are a lot bigger, so I ended up going double. And we used 2x10s for this, but because of how wide the opening was, we had a double stack 2x4s on both sides to help fill some of the gap, and then left a little bit of a gap in the middle for the lock, and then we just kind of overlapped the pickets a little bit. But basically going to be the same concept for the other side. The other one's just going to be slightly shorter than this. Again, this was like 22 feet, I believe. The other one's going to be like 18, so should be a good bit shorter. Shouldn't be as hard to make it, but yeah, same concept, same hinges and everything. And then we'll do the same thing for that 12-foot gate as well, but again, even smaller. So we'll just do two 6-foot gates. I don't think we'll have many issues with that one at all. This one came out pretty nice. I got to retension the hinges so that way they shut by themselves, and it does rub the grass a little bit, but over time that'll kind of go away. But it's coming together really nice. I had to do some weird trimming for the posts for the pickets. You can kind of see this one's a little weird. When the gates open up, the picket on the gate ends up hitting the picket on that side, so we had to like make a weird shape to kind of make it fit. Same thing with this one. I didn't realize how much of a pain that would be using one post for both of the hinges. So both of the gates hinge off of that same one. So we had to do that little weird one in the middle, but it works. Oh, and real quick, I'll show you guys. I did end up finishing the entire back side of the fence earlier this week. Did all that off camera again. It's just a lot of the same stuff over and over again, so I didn't want to keep going with it. But we got all the posts set last week. We framed everything out, I think last Tuesday, and then on Friday I ended up going by and hanging up all the pickets. So the entire backside's all done. So the whole perimeter is essentially finished. The only two gaps we have left are just the two gates that we're going to knock out today. Once we get those knocked out, we'll finally be able to get the let the dogs out, and we don't have to worry about walking them each day, which would be nice. And then for the fence, kind of hard to see it this far back, but we did end up getting some lights for it. We ended up just putting these little solar lights pretty much every other post. They're not crazy bright, but they're enough to see where the fence is. I mean, out here at night it's pitch black, you can't see a single thing, so it gives you at least some type of a marking of where you're at. But all right, we'll set the tripod up. We'll start making this fence. Of course, today it's like 40 degrees out, so we got the heater out to try to stay warm, but it should warm up a little bit here But yeah, we'll set the tripod up and we'll start building these two gates. All right, so we talked about it before. I want to use this area to park stuff like we had the boat there. Now that I'm thinking about this, so if we have essentially two 9-foot gates right here, it's going to be very difficult to be able to wiggle it in. So you just saw how difficult it was just to get the boat out of here, and that's with no gates. So the plan was for these two gates to swing outward. Problem with that is if the gate swings outward at like a 90 degree, I'm not going to be able to cut across here like I need to in order to get the boat out. Now, if we had this gate swing out and this gate swing in, that would work, but that would be, I think we're going to have a problem with making sure that the fence is still straight across on both of the gates with them hinging differently, just from the way the blocking is. So I'm wondering if we can remove this stuff and instead have the hinges like back here, so that way it'll cover this whole section, but then it can also, when the gate opens, instead of it just opening to like a 90 degree, I'm wondering if I could have it come like all the way back to here, so that way I'd still be able to get across the grass to get the boat out of there. But we wanted to have the gate here so that way I can pull stuff up in front of the garage if I'm working on something. Again, the septic crosses in front of it, so we can't come through that way. And then we wanted to also have a bunch of storage space for projects and things, so that's why we ended up making another gate back here for this exact reason. I can now, put stuff back here and it's out of the way, it's hidden behind the garage, and it's also not taking up space in the yard. Now, without this gate, there's no way I would have been able to park this. I wouldn't have been able to make the turn. I might have. It just would have been pretty tight, especially with how big this trailer is. So I'm gonna take a couple minutes and look at that post and try to get an idea if we can make that work or not. All right, that didn't take too long. So we thought about it for a little bit, and to try to figure out how we were going to be able to park something in here still, we ended up pretty much just adjusting where we had the hinges at. So the plan now is the gate on the left side is going to open outward and the gate on the right side is going to open inward. So when we pulled the boat out, right, we had a loop all the way out there. So if we had the gate all the way back out that way, which I can kind of show you what that would look like. If we had this open out to about there, I had to pull all the way through here to get the car and the trailer out, so we'd end up not being able to get everything through. So with this one, we made it so that way it opens inward. Only problem we're gonna have with that is like the elevation goes up a little bit, so we might have to mess with that a little bit to make sure the pickets will fit. But now this one will open pretty much 90 degrees inward, and now we can still kind of wiggle our way through. And then again with this one will go out, and then we'll have plenty of space. It's probably gonna hit the camera. And then this one will come pretty much 90 degrees out this way, just like that. So kind of weird looking, but that way at least we can still access that area in the middle. As far as spacing goes, came out pretty spot on. Watch out, dude. There's about, I don't know, half-inch gap in the middle. They're a little bit uneven at the top, but not the end of the world. Once we put the weight of the pickets on here, it'll kind of pull this down a little bit. But the spacing's pretty spot on. Just enough space to get that latch that's down there on the ground in between the two to lock it all in. And then we got some half-inch electrical conduit. I'm gonna cut like little 12-inch sections, and I'm gonna ram those into the ground so that way I can drop the pins in to lock it in. But we got all of our pickets out. We're gonna start picketing this from the middle out, since we're gonna have to cut weird shaped ones for the post sides again. So we'll start picketing all that, and then we'll set the latch and all that up, and then we'll jump onto that next gate. Alright, one done. Got one more to go. That actually turned out pretty good. The only thing we still need to do is the support bars in the middle, but I'm gonna have to put some more 2x4s to bring that bottom post down a little bit, since the rods I have aren't that big. But this worked out pretty nice. Right now it's kind of swaying because it doesn't have that lock, but that'll hold it in place for now. And we'll take a look from the outside. Came out pretty good. I'm not very happy with the gaps where the posts are, but there's really nothing I can do. Just with the way that the gate opens up, there can't be anything else in the way. But now we have a nice big gate to get us in front of the garage. So now we're gonna move down to here. Don't mind all the fuzz. The dogs are eating sticks and toys. But now we got this one to go. Spacing between here is 12'7". So we'll do two equal gates on both sides, and do the same process. So it's just gonna be a little bit easier to do on this side since it's not quite as wide. He just needs room to run. Lorenzo's running and Landon's trying to lick the grill. Where'd they go? It's so dusty.
Right back to the grill.
All right, so the other side's all good now. Now we're gonna work on setting up the electronic gate arms. So I put the power boxes up here already. We'll end up running the wire underground over to that outlet. Not really too sure. I mean, this is gonna be a pain to set this up, but you basically have to mount the arm to the pole, and then you have to open and close the gate a couple times just to make sure you have enough throw in the arms. And then there's like limiting switches on them that we'll mess around with, but it's gonna be kind of hard to get some of this on video. But what we're gonna do is essentially it's gonna get attached here, and then I'll make a little wooden bracket that'll go somewhere around there. And then we just gotta test that a couple times, open it, close it, make sure that it works. Once we get that on there and we figure out where that arm's gonna go, I'll run that tensioner cable on both sides just to kind of lock them in a little bit better. But yeah, it's gonna take a little bit of adjusting back and forth, but we'll try to get that set up. All right, so we got this side set up already. Ignore this cable tensioner. I gotta finish that still, but yeah, so we got the one arm already set up and hooked up. We got the power box set up already, and then this is the actual like gate opening module that takes care of everything. So nothing's really wired up, but at least we have the one set up. We have the bracket in the right side and everything in the right angle. And then we still need to do this side over here, which that's what we're gonna finish real quick. Once you open this up, you can see that the gate arm fully extends to the point where it'll stop, which should be right about there. Once it hits the grass, it'll end up stopping right there. So this side should be all good. We just need to take care of the other side, and then the all the wiring and everything. So again, we're gonna have to cut a slit in the driveway to run the wire over to this side for this arm. So they gave you a bunch of extra wire, so that'll all get ran underground. This one will get hooked up on this post, just like that one did. And then for the middle, we have this, which is the actual like locking mechanism. That'll end up getting wired back to that box. But that way, once it shuts, it'll actually clip together and hold itself together. That way you really won't need this or any of the other stuff on it. It'll actually hold itself in there on its own. So we'll take some measurements from this side, since everything works over here, mock it up on this side, and then we'll get all that screwed in. Alright, so we got this side all set up and everything is temporarily wired. We still need to cut the slit in the driveway to hide everything. But at least it's wired up now, so we can start messing with it and checking the limiting switches and all that on it. But let's give it a shot and see what happens. So it looks like this bracket's still loose, so there's some play with it, but overall they both open. So right there you can see the gate stop moving, but that arm's moving, so I just got to tighten that up a little more. And alright, so this one doesn't open all the way. This one's actually pretty good. There needs to be a delay on one of the gates depending on where this is set up, so it'll automatically unlock this, and then this coupler piece, which will be on this gate, will have to swing open first. So we'll have to mess with that. But yeah, you can see how much play there is. I guess this isn't very Oh wow, yeah, it's not tight at all. We'll have to fix that. All right, so we got it a little bit better just from messing around with some of it. The lag bolts ripped straight out of the posts, mainly from like the wind. So I had a bunch of play in it, so I ended up pulling out. So we just put bolts all the way through to the other side. We'll cut those a little shorter. Didn't do the other side just yet. Still need to get nuts for the bolts for that side. Next problem we're having is it doesn't fully shut like flat. So we still need to do some adjustments there, but it's working though. That one opens up first because of the lock. I didn't physically put the lock on yet. And then the other one opens up shortly afterwards. I got to get those cable tensioners on because you can really see it's really twisting the door from that wheel. But I mean, they're stopping right where they should be. So that part's good. And then they stay open where they're at. Hit the button again, and then it comes back and closes. This one's got a little bit of play in the arm, so I got to adjust that. It's also the bracket rocking back and forth because of the lag bolts on there, but you'll see this one will close. This one's pretty much right where it needs to be, but then this one, yeah, doesn't close all the way. So we gotta, you can see how much that arm's moving. So I'm gonna have to pull that back and lock that in a little bit tighter. That way it doesn't move. I might even have to drill another hole if I can't get enough out of it, because it needs to, it's gotta come back to about here. So we'll, let's try to tighten up this bracket still, and then we'll work on getting this lock set up. Lock will, this will get mounted on this side. The electronic lock will get locked on the, or attached to the other side here. So that way when they swing shut, that's why they're gonna have to like press against each other for it to clip in. All right, gate is all set up. Lock is all hooked up. We had to do some adjustments off cameras to get that to work right. I can't show you it just yet, just because we're not finished running this wire for the second arm. So I just started doing some cable management. Tuck the wire all the way up here for the lock, so that is completely out of the way now. Started shortening some of the cables over here just to kind of clean everything up. We got this power cord all trimmed down. I'll end up locking that in here. Lock wire comes in here. What else? We got the power wire, and then this cable that comes all the way from the other side. So next thing we're gonna do, we're gonna chalk line 2 lines, probably about an inch apart from each other with the chalk line, and then we're gonna end up sawing both of those lines and kind of removing a little bit of asphalt in the middle, just thick enough so we can tuck this cable in down into the seam, and then we'll end up filling it on top of it. I want to do that first before we start screwing all the wires and stuff in and locking everything in and trimming anything, just to make sure we have enough. Definitely gonna cut this power wire back a little bit. Should be able to just kind of loop this in, snip it, and attach it there, so I don't have to worry about all this extra. And then probably gonna bury this extension cord over to the house. That way it has permanent power all hooked up. Another thing I found out, it's an extra box you have to get for HomeLink. So I did order that yesterday. The HomeLink is so that way we can connect it to the 2 cars. So definitely want to get that on there. For now, we just have the clickers. Got 2 of them, but the Grand Cherokee and then our new car, the Jetta GLI, has the HomeLink hooked up within in the car on the center console or the mirror. So we're gonna end up hooking all that up. That way we can utilize those buttons inside the car, and then we can only need one of these inside the Jeep, since my Wrangler doesn't have the HomeLink in it. So let's chalk line this out real quick, and then we'll get ready to start cutting. All right, well, I think we got that all wrapped up. We ended up cutting that trench. We got the wire buried in there. I'm gonna end up getting it's like a sealer that you kind of pour in there to seal that in. So Chelsea's actually out right now picking it up, so we'll end up putting that in off camera. But now we got the wires that'll all be completely tucked and hidden away. Come straight down the pole under here and then back up into the box. Home link will go in tomorrow. Gonna mount that here, and then I'll just run the wires down. It taps into that, and then this is a separate cord, but our power cord goes under here. And then instead of digging all of this underground, I just kind of tucked it up along the bottom of the fence, and then I got to figure out what to do with this extra cable. I don't know if I'm gonna put a hole with some conduit into the bottom, into the basement of the house to run it, or if I'm gonna permanently leave it there, but I'll end up trimming up some of this excess cable just so there's not a whole bunch over there. But here real quick, I'll show you guys it opening and closing real quick. Takes about 30 seconds for it to fully open and about 30 seconds for it to fully close. And then I did end up putting that tensioning cable on this gate. I haven't done this one yet. I don't really know if this one needs it, but that one helped a lot. Now those pickets aren't rubbing anymore at the end of it. But fully opens up. That one opens up a little bit more than this one does, but it's over the driveway, so plenty of space. Click it again. Now it'll shut. And that spacing should be just right, so that way when it shuts, this one will close first, and then this one clips in and latches to it. I gotta hit this thing with like WD-40 or something, but let's see if it locks. Perfect. Sweet. Well, I think that's gonna wrap up the gate builds. Like I said, I'll do the home link off camera. I'm just gonna sort of just plug it in and then set up the remotes, but we'll have some more videos out pretty soon, so stay tuned. Hope you guys are enjoying.